Thank you all for being here. I'm calling the Audit Committee of Sioux Falls to order. And today is the 23rd of, Thursday the 24th, I'm sorry. And we're here at Carnegie Hall. Welcome to all those that are watching us on Channel 16 and via the internet. First thing I'd like to do today, I've been on the committee now for about 4 years, and I'm privileged to chair it now. And, I want to thank you for that, but I also want to introduce you to our new committee members from the City Council. Councilor Rick Kiley, and if you want to stand, no, you don't need to stand or anything. And Councilor Dean Karski and Christine Erickson, our other councilor. So welcome, and I think you'll find this committee being valuable. I know it's something that I've looked at and over the years and found that it's a valuable tool for the City of Sioux Falls and for the council, Sioux Falls City Councils to council to have. So, welcome. I would next entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 16th, 2014.
Second.
So moved by.
Move to accept the minutes, Erickson.
Erickson and Karski seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have some reports from Rich and his crew, so let's get started on those if we could. We have one to start out with.
Yeah, we have one audit report. Jess is going to take that, and we also have the audit client, Les Kinstead is here as the manager, and Brent as the program specialist, and I know they want to, they have a few things they want to share with the audit committee, so we'll let Jess take it from there.
And we also want to say that Claudia Bear is the grant fiscal specialist for this program as well. So she handles the payments coming in from the participants. So we did an audit of the rental rehab program. And this program is part of community development, the affordable housing division. From Ordinance 70-11, it allowed the city to enter into an interest-free loan agreement with South Dakota Housing Development Authority for the purpose of loaning funds to rental property owners in Sioux Falls. The city can borrow up to $500,000, and that's drawn down on an as-needed basis with a maximum amount of $100,000 per draw over the course of 5 years. Initially, the program was open to rental housing properties that were located in the Pettigrew Heights neighborhood, so they started out with that neighborhood first. And then in October 2013, the program was expanded to include the North End, Axel Park, West 12th Street, All Saints, Beetle, and Whittier neighborhoods. The property owners are to use these funds for rehab projects on the exterior of their properties. There are a few eligibility requirements for the property owners to be able to obtain this loan. First, the property has to be located in one of those core incentive neighborhood areas. The rental property must be registered as a rental property with the City of Sioux Falls. All work must be completed by a licensed contractor within the City of Sioux Falls. If the property owner is the licensed contractor, the funds will be provided for the materials only, so they won't also get money for their own labor. The property owners must be current with their taxes, insurance, and assessments, and also with all rental property financial mortgage obligations if they do have a mortgage. And then only properties that are structurally sound will be eligible for the funds. So each property owner has the ability to apply for up to $25,000 per property for up to 3 separate properties, so a max of $75,000. They will solicit bids from the licensed contractors, and then once the program specialist completes an inspection of the exterior home to make sure that it is sound and that the paint is up to code and everything, then the property owners go and get bids. So from the contractors or from wherever they're buying the materials. Once the bids are turned into the program specialist, the owner then selects that contractor and signs the loan documentation with the city. Upon completion of the work, the property owner then brings the final invoice to Brent, the program specialist, who then completes a final inspection of the work before then printing the check for the funds to give back to the property owner so that they can go back and pay the contractor. Let's see. Oh, the payment is made per job. So if they come to Brent and they want to contract for, let's say, $10,000, but that's for windows and siding and a roof, it's paid by when those projects are completed. So they don't get the lump sum if all the projects aren't done. They can bring in one invoice for the roof that can get paid, and then they can go on to the next project, so they don't have to wait. The first loan payment is due in the 7th month after the contracted loan amount has been reached, so they don't have to make any payments and there's no interest for the first 6 months. At that point, there's a 3% interest rate on the loan. If the property owner were to default, they are charged a $5 late fee, and then if they default 2 months in a row, they're charged an additional late fee, and then risk that 3% interest rate going up to 10% if the payment's not received. And then as of May 2014, they had 21 loans that had been issued since the start of the program for a total contracted amount of $294,199. And then if you look at page 3 of the audit report, this just shows one example of a rental property that has been rehabbed through this program. And it's pretty incredible. It doesn't even look like the same house. They did a lot of work. So, some of the things that we looked at when we audited this program was to make sure that we're complying with the loan agreement with South Dakota Housing Development Authority, that the program requirements for the property owners are met prior to the recipients receiving funding, and that the loan proceeds are actually being used for their intended purpose. And if current administrative controls ensure that the participants comply with the loan terms so they don't default, that kind of thing. And if policy and procedures exist for securing and disposing of confidential information, because they do have to submit mortgage documents, tax returns, information that could have a social security number on it. Then. So through that, we found that one of the things is they don't currently have their policy and procedures for this program documented in writing. We did look at some participant files to make sure that those requirements for the documents are in the file prior to the participant receiving funding. And we found that we reviewed 6 files for 16 different documents. And based on that, there were 3 instances where there was missing proof of the financial obligations being current, 3 instances where there was missing proof that property taxes are current. And now those 2 things are things that Brent can either look at through the county website, or there's another community development staff member that contacts someone to check on those. So they were done, but it just wasn't documented in the file. And then one instance that the monthly mortgage statement was missing. I just want to say that with these missing, they aren't documents that are required based on city ordinance, and they are not required based on what South Dakota Housing Development Authority wanted. It's basically what community development and affordable housing decided that they wanted to see in the files before they issued the loans. So they aren't breaking ordinance or the agreement. We also found that there's no current written policy or some type of checklist for review of the files prior to the loan being issued. They review the files, it's just not written, and there's no actual check. They do use Excel sheets saved on the J drive to track contracted amounts for the participants. The spreadsheets are used to track loan repayment periods, interest paid, and invoices. When payments are received, they're entered into Munis by the grant fiscal specialist, Claudia, and then they're sent to Wells Fargo Bank by a community development staff person. To double check that the balances that the participants were showing are compared to what we're showing, basically making sure that there's no fraud in the amount of money that's going out, we did send out confirmation letters to some of the participants, just basically confirming what their balance was as of May 31st, 2014. We received all of them back. There were no discrepancies, so that was good. And then we found that as far as securing the information, all the files are kept in and receipts are kept in secured locked file cabinets where only Brent or Claudia have access. The Excel sheets are locked down to just community development staff, so if I wanted to go and try to look at those, I can't get in there. And then community development follows the disposal procedures that are required by the city. So didn't find any problems there. We did just have 2 recommendations that we already kind of talked about. One was that they should establish written policies and procedures for the administration of the program. Management agreed with this. They already knew that they need that stuff written down. They discussed it internally, and they're going to develop guidelines for the administration of the program. They expect this to be done as of December 31st of this year. And then the other one was just implementing some kind of review or checklist for those files and community development. And as we talked about this, and they brought up the checklist idea, and we thought that that would be the most efficient since Brent is really overextended already. So we didn't want to recommend something that's going to put more on him and cause the process just not to work as efficiently as it could. And they actually already implemented that checklist. So those were our 2 recommendations. Overall, I mean, especially seeing the picture, this program is very successful. It's great for the property owners. It's great for the neighborhoods once these houses are renovated. And then Les actually wanted to talk for a few minutes just about the program and also about the department, if that's okay, since we have some new members.
Kinstead.
I don't know. The mics are live, I presume, because
Yes.
we're on television. Okay, then I'll keep them close to my face so people can hear me in TV land, I guess. So, well, first of all, we appreciate the chance to be here. One of the things that I want to recognize right off the bat is I want to thank Rich and Jess for the work that they did on it. All of the audit and the processes of doing it were handled in a really professional and I think excellent manner. We had a pre-audit conference. We talked about what was going to happen. They went ahead and did it. Jess and my colleague Brent worked together, went through all the stuff, and was all done in a very, very professional, very excellent manner, thorough. So you're to be congratulated on how you did it. Secondly, I'm the new kid on the block. I started with the City of Sioux Falls right around the 1st of November. So a number of you I've had a chance to meet. Hi, Tamara. And some of you I guess I haven't yet, but we'll get a chance to do that as time goes by. So it's nice to see all of you. Hope to get a chance to visit with you more. As the management responses indicate, we're in agreement with the findings that are there. They're just good common sense kinds of things. What I've found is that sometimes in an organization you will say, yep, we know how to do that, but you don't ever take into consideration the fact that things can happen. People resign, move on to different jobs. Oh, well, he knew how to do that, but now how do we do this? And we believe in the written policies. That's becoming more and more prevalent in all of the organizations. I used to work for Avera Health. That was a big push there, and I can see where that's a very good idea, and we will intend to be doing that. Hope to have that finished up by the 1st of the year. The checklist, my first reaction was, duh. Everybody needs a list, or you tend to forget things or whatever. I was pleased to see that the documentation had been done. It was just a matter that there wasn't a paper record of it in the file. So everything was done very professionally. We appreciate it. And I can speak about affordable housing if you wish, but I don't want to overstay my welcome. I can talk longer than you want to listen about affordable housing, and so I'll leave that up to the chair if he wishes to ask me any questions, or any of you. But I guess the last thing I would say is that we really welcome these internal audits. I'm new here. I've just started in this, and if you think you want it to be right, I can't tell you how much I want it to be right and how much I want it to be proper and above board. I've got an excellent staff. I want to congratulate Brent on the way that he's handled this program, and it's a good program. It helps to clean up some neighborhoods, and heaven knows we do need that. So I guess those would be my comments. If you'd like me to say anything more about affordable housing, we have all sorts of programs. I can, but the focus today is on the rental rehab, and so I'll just limit my comments to that unless you have any other questions.
Any questions for Mr. Kinstead? Les, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Any questions for Kim on the audit, or Jess on the
Yes.
audit? Okay, I'll make one comment, and that is that I put a note on the front of this. This is exactly what internal audit is supposed to do. You know, find some things that could help you make things better and make more efficient and effective. And that's exactly what's happened here. And so I congratulate you for the way you handle it. And again, the staff the excellent staff we have for doing an audit, doing a good audit. I would entertain a motion to accept the rental rehab program audit in June of 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Kylie is second. Forbes is, or second is Forbes. Kylie is moved. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Nice job, Jess.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kinstead and Brent. Okay. Next on our agenda is city ordinance, appoint chair of audit. Do you want to just give a brief?
Yeah, I'll give a very brief. Kim put it up on the screen, and then you just have a paper copy. You should have one page that says conflicting ordinances, like half a sheet, basically. Jim David from council staff and I kind of found this discrepancy last month when Jim was updating the council procedures. He sent me a list of the updates, and I looked at it and go, oh, it says the city council chair appoints the chair of the various city council committees. And I said, well, I think we got a conflict in ordinance. And I said, we have this one ordinance that says the audit committee elects their chair. And then he said, well, it's not just the city council policy. He found this other ordinance which says that whoever is the council chair, and this year it's Mr. Karski. So I guess I don't have a preference either way, but it'd be a quick fix. Whatever we decide to do, it'd be pretty easy to amend one of the ordinances and run that through the city council, the first hearing and the second hearing. So I guess I'll turn it over to the acting chair right now, I guess.
Any comments on this, Dean?
I guess the whole audit department and thereby falls under the city council, and the audit committee kind of controls the actions of the auditing department.
Yes.
It is a somewhat unique committee in that we have citizen members, unlike other committees where it's strictly council members. That being said, I would still prefer that the city council, since they are the directors of the audit department, that we control who chairs that committee. So, just for discussion.
Other comments?
I think I would agree to that, and I would just move that we change the first sentence of ordinance 32.019 to read, the council chair shall elect or select a chair from the committee members.
And I'd strike that whole second sentence.
What?
I'd strike the whole second sentence after that.
On that first ordinance up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's, we can do that. I think that would probably be the simplest way to do it. And would you agree with that?
I don't, whatever the committee decides, or
You guys have any input?
I don't have a preference.
I give you a little history on this. This committee used to be made up of more volunteers, so to speak, than council people. And we saw a little discrepancy in that when I first came on council. And that's why this was changed, so that there were 3 members from the general public and 4 people from the council on this committee. Because we do have the responsibility. Not only are we're directed, and we have the responsibility of overseeing the complete audit committee, and to have more non-members of the council on, then the council kind of, it didn't feel right. And so that's why it's been changed, and this would then be in compliance with what was the wishes of the council when we did vote the new procedure in, the new membership. So what we've got is a directive, I guess, would be, or motion to change 30.019 to read, the council chair shall elect a chair from the committee, from the audit committee members, period. And that would be the end of that.
So it should say the council chair shall appoint rather than
Appoint or select.
Shall appoint, yeah. And then strike the last
Strike the
sentence.
entire list. Yeah.
Council Chair, or Chair?
Yes,
I think you have other input over here.
Basin.
My question was, and I agree from a procedural standpoint and from a logistics standpoint, it makes sense for a council member to chair the committee, and I don't have any problems with that. Is there any reason that we even have 32.019 at this point, or is it just in a different section?
I think it's a portion of the ordinance. I think there's more to it. I think it talks about the.
Well, this isn't all of it, so
they meet at, 4 times a year or something like that.
It seems redundant to even have them both, but if this is part of a larger.
And I don't think it was when that second one was passed. I don't think there was any intent. I think it was just an oversight that we had the conflict. It just never occurred to anybody, including me, that there was
Something that.
Yeah, but 32.019. I think Jim just took the pertinent. I believe there. So, but
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
okay,
Thank you very much. That's good catch.
okay.
I'm going to turn it over now to Rich to go through a number of the next items on the agenda.
Yeah, I'd spoken with Rex about this. Since we basically have like 3 new members here, I think it's good to have like just a quick overview of just
A point of order, Rich. I don't think we made a motion in a second on that last thing we voted on.
Mr. Kiley made a motion.
You have a
Yep.
motion? Okay.
Yeah, it was Kiley, and someone over here seconded it, so I remember.
We did with, I think, the portion that I had suggested, but I'm not sure if we accepted your suggestion.
Meaning mine?
No, Councilor Karski's.
To
Striking the
scratch
second line.
Did you make that a motion, or was that a suggestion?
That was a suggestion, yes. It wasn't.
It
So
wasn't really a motion.
to clean it up, I'd say we maybe go back and.
Okay, good point. Would you like to, Mr. Kiley, would you like to redo your motion?
Certainly. I move that we change ordinance 32.019 so that it reads, the council chair shall appoint a chair from the committee members, and then strike the entire last line of that section.
I'd make a second, and I also have a discussion point.
Okay, now's the time for that.
We don't say anywhere that committee chair has to be a counselor. I don't think that's an issue. Is that an issue for anybody? It could be anybody.
It could be.
Member of the
And in the
committee.
past, it has been citizen members
Yeah.
under the old
That's
composition.
probably-
Yeah.
That's probably a good point.
It leaves it open and leaves it to the discretion of future council chairs. So I prefer broader instead of saying it has to be this way. So I'd like to leave it open that way, but I just wanted that. It
That
was
would negate-
brought to my attention, and
Okay. With the discussion, anybody else? Any discussion? If I can add to that, then with what I said earlier about the reason that this change was made, I think it is appropriate that a council member be the chair of this, because that's the person that the council is the one that has a responsibility for not only overseeing what the audit committee does, but the personnel matters within the audit committee also, such as signing off on vacations, doing reviews and things like that, which is set up in our operations documents, And to have someone from the outside do that really doesn't have any authority that way would probably not be the right way to do it.
Valid point. Plus, when it comes to committee reports, typically the counselor will make that report along with Mr. Oaksel.
Yep.
So
I guess I would
maybe
like,
need to amend that.
I think so, because when the people with the knowledge are gone, we need to have that in written rules and policy.
right. So would you amend your motion to read something like the committee shall appoint, or not?
Council chair.
The council chair shall appoint a chair from the current city council to chair the
Audit
audit committee.
committee. And continue
And
to
strike the second line entirely.
Can I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay. So what we've got here, folks, is a mess, but I think I've got it. We've got a substitute motion, basically. And so what we need to do then is vote on a substitute motion.
You can just hit an amended.
Just the amended motion? Okay, let's.
Amendment and then vote on the main motion as amended.
Right. Okay, so we've got an amended. Let's vote for the amendment. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Then let's vote again on the amended motion, which would be basically the same as what we just got done doing. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All righty.
Good point. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Counselor. Now we can turn it over to you.
Okay. In order to conform to the, to get ready for peer review, I am supposed to have a discussion with the audit committee of the purpose, authority, the reason why we exist, that sort of thing. Kind of a brief overview with the committee on a regular basis. I've talked to Rex earlier today, and we think at least every 2 years, but certainly now would be a perfect time with 3 new members. This is your first audit committee meeting. You should have in front of you on your desk, you should have the internal audit charter. You should have the and one page with the definition of internal auditing, very brief, and then there's a code of ethics also. So what this all is what we call the Red Book. This is what we follow, and not for obvious reasons called the Red Book. And there's the Professional Practices Framework is the official name of it, but everybody calls it the Red Book. So, and that includes the definition of internal auditing, includes the code of ethics, and includes the standards. And the standards are in this book, but they're only about 20 pages out of this whole book is the actual standards. The rest of it, the bulk of it, is advisories. How do you apply the standards and that sort of thing. But as far as the definition of internal auditing, it's there. I think, Kim, could you put that up? Could you put that up on the screen? And believe it or not, this was controversial 5-6 years ago with the Institute of Internal Auditors. What some people had heartburn with was in that first sentence where it says consulting activity. Believe it or not, that was quite controversial at the time. That was a change. And the idea, I think, is, and now it's accepted, is that, as Les Kinstead mentioned, we're auditors, we're independent, but we're supposed to be helpful. And be sort of an auditor/consultant. So they put that, the Institute of Internal Auditors put that in the actual definition. And we incorporate that in that internal audit charter, which we'll go over in a second. So basically, it's a very broad definition, systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance process. And the whole idea, these Red Book standards apply not only to government auditors here in the United States, they apply worldwide in all industries, whether not-for-profit, for-profit, public sector. So now let's go to the, could you put up the Code of Ethics? And the Code of Ethics, if we were going to call ourselves internal auditors, if we were going to say that we follow the Red Book standards, which we're supposed to according to our charter, we have a Code of Ethics. It's very simple. There's just 4 basic principles there: integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, and the competency. And it's pretty brief. There's nothing that conflicts with as city employees. it pretty much conforms to what you would expect of city employees. There's no conflict with anything that I can see. So I think we've had a staff meeting on this. We'll talk about it once in a while. It's just good to remind staff and remind myself of the if we call ourselves internal auditors and we belong to the IA, we have a code of ethics, just as CPAs do. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. Now, if you put up the internal audit charter up on the screen there. Okay, this was adopted, I believe, in 2013. The original one is, I think, 2006 or 2007. And then we had an update for some of the council members may remember early in 2013. My job title changed. That was one change. We had to, instead of lead internal auditor, it said internal audit manager. I added a couple of things that I knew if we did a peer review that they would expect to see. When our peer review team, and I'll talk more about that later on the agenda, they're going to look at the charter. That's probably the first thing they look at. Do you have this in your charter? Do you have that in your charter? Do you address that? In other words, do you have a definition of internal auditing? I think we do. We've got the scope of work, which I think is pretty much in alignment with the definition there. It's very broad, what we can look at. We're not just counting petty cash or just counting inventory. We can look at compliance with laws. We can look at efficiency and effectiveness. We can look at many things. So this is sort of our marching orders or sort of our constitution. And then it gets into accountability. What talks about the internal auditor manager is in the discharge of his or her duties is directed by the audit committee, reports to the chair, and then all these things that we are required to do. Okay, come up with the annual audit plan and report regularly. And then there's a paragraph there on the independence. That's very important. As internal auditors, we have to be, we're city employees, but we have to be as independent as possible. And the way we do that is by having this committee that I report to. I don't report to the mayor or the people that we audit. And then more about the responsibility, things we're supposed to do, the bullet points there. And then if you go, keep scrolling up, Kim, to the end of the charter there. We get into the authority. We have the authority to look at any records that we deem necessary for audit purposes, and then also says that we're not supposed to direct any activities. We're not supposed to be management. I can direct the activities of staff, but I can't tell management what to do, and I have to be careful not to be. If we're doing consulting work, that we don't take on the role of management, because then we might end up auditing our own work. So we got to be very careful about that. We let management be management. Our recommendations are just that. They can accept them, partially accept them, or not accept them. And then from there, I guess it's up to the elected officials, if they have a heartburn with that. So go to the end of the charter there, Kim, and then it just talks about the professional standards. It says we'll meet or exceed the international standards for the professional practice, which is the Red Book. And then we'll comply with the Code of Ethics of the Institute of Internal Auditors, and it says that the internal audit manager is responsible for maintenance of the charter, which that's from the Red Book. I'm supposed to look at it every once in a while, and if I think there's something that needs to be changed, I will bring that to the audit committee, and then it'll go to the City Council for final approval. So this was adopted by resolution back in, I think it's March of 2013. And another thing that the peer review likes to see, show the signatures, or they'd like to see what they call an executive endorsement of the charter, meaning it has some teeth. So what we had is, at the time, we had the chair of the audit committee sign it, we had the mayor sign it, the chair of the council, and then I acknowledge that. So that's, I think we're in conformance with the standards there. And so that's kind of an overview, especially for our newer members, of what the internal audit charter is. And if you have questions, if you look it over at some time and you have a question, just ask me about it. Something you think needs to be changed, or if you question why is that in there, you can certainly ask during a meeting or just between meetings. We can talk about it. So, but I think it's in good shape now. But if the standards were to change, then I would certainly review that and recommend a change to the charter. So I think it gives us the authority we need to do our job. We have to be able to go in to a manager and say, okay, I'm here from internal audit, and if we did have opposition, which we have not experienced. Like, you don't need to see that, Rich. I can say, well, according to the charter, I can have authority to look at anything I want to look at. Now, I don't ever think that would ever happen, but if it did, it gives us some ammunition. And obviously, that would not be my first reaction, is to pull the charter out of my back pocket and say, here you go, Mr. Manager. I would, obviously, we would work with them, and yeah, we would figure out a diplomatic way to do it. But we do have the authority to look at what we need to look at. So,
Are there questions or comments? Councilor Kiley.
Under scope of work, we have 9 items identified there. Have we ever been asked to identify action items that are in place to ensure that each of these do occur?
have we ever been asked by could you rephrase the question maybe?
Well,
yeah.
Has there ever been a need, or even for this committee itself, to identify how we're going to accomplish each of these 9 items?
I don't think we've had that discussion. Usually what happens is we
what the process is.
Yeah, usually we prepare an annual audit plan with input from elected officials and management, and kind of using our own judgment on risks. And I present an annual audit plan usually in December, approximately, to the committee first. And then we present that. If you approve that plan, okay, this is what you're going to be working on next year, Rich and your team. And we present it to the City Council for final approval. But no, I don't think we've had a detailed discussion with the committee on those bullet points. I think it gives us a lot of discretion as auditors when we do an audit, that we can look at, you know, our resources being acquired efficiently in accordance with state law and city policy. Are there laws, state laws in place for this department? Are they complying with those state laws? You know, when we look at that list, we can see, okay, these are the things we could look at. Obviously, not in every audit. We're not going to look at everything. It doesn't apply. But it gives us a good framework as auditors when we're scoping the audit of things we could look at, possibly. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. I didn't want to.
Other comments? Yeah. I have 2 very quick ones. As I said, I've been on this committee now. This is the 5th year, and the mission statement kind of says it all: to help the city achieve the highest efficiency and effectiveness with integrity. That's what we're looking for. And then in the vision statement, it says to be a highly respected service division, and a catalyst for positive change. And that's what we've been, or that's what the audit committee is and has been over these years, and we want to continue to keep it in that mode, and because it's our wing for the people of Sioux Falls, for our constituency, to make sure that things are run correctly, and if they can be done better, it can be done better. To work as that person who can help each one of the departments to work along those lines. So it's an important committee. It's an important division, or part of our responsibilities as counselors, to have this audit committee and keep it as well tuned as possible. So thank you for all that information.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go ahead then with required discussion, controlling activities, and managing risks.
Yeah, if I read the charter correctly, and if I look at the standards correctly, every so often I need to have that discussion with what they say with the board, and this would be the equivalent of that. So I prepared, it's about 6 pages there, just sort of risk assessment information for the audit committee. I didn't list every conceivable risk. I mean, if I put every single risk that I could think of, that could go on for hundreds of pages. It's more like I told the chair earlier, it's more the view from 30,000 feet. Some of the big risks like infrastructure, aging infrastructure, fraud. And I try to describe the risk briefly in that first column off to the left there. And the middle column is how it's mitigated, how management is mitigating that. And then the third is, as it's area been audited before, either by our external auditor or by us or by both of us. And a lot of the information, if you read our CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, a lot of this is in that notes to the financial statements. You can see that in there. Tracy and his team, they prepare that management discussion, they prepare those notes, and they'll put that information in there. And other information is based on my audit work over the last 7 or 8 years, or things I've looking at the CIP plan, that sort of thing. I'm not going to go through each of these unless you want me to. If you have a specific question, you can certainly ask me. My overall impression is that management pays close attention to risk, and controls are generally in place and functioning well. Typically, when we do an audit, we don't find a total failure of internal controls or poor managers. Usually we, just like on this audit we just did, that the program is working as intended, no funds are missing. We're just kind of fine-tuning things, like maybe management hadn't thought of that, or maybe they had, but it was kind of on the back burner. Maybe we kind of put it on the front burner. Now, I've been with the city a long time. I've been with the city for over 31 years. When I first started, I was in the finance department, and back in the 80s, I know that in some cases, internal controls were not very good, and I would read some of the external audit reports from those errors. I have them in my folder downstairs, and they would have many comments. The external auditors would. We really didn't have an internal audit staff, none really, and controls are weak. There was probably some assets that went missing. Auditors would often, our external auditors would comment on this, and sometimes it would take a while before we would get the controls in place. Now, there's been certainly an evolution of things as we've gotten better systems and we've gotten smarter about controls. I think things have tightened up, and if you've been on the committee like our chair has, our external auditors really don't have any major findings. I think maybe a few years ago they had a finding on the schedule of federal awards that wasn't reconciled between the, there was a problem with that. That was the biggest thing. Controls are considerably tightened up. I just spent the morning and all of yesterday, Jess and I did, watching what the payroll person does in payroll, watching the whole process of citywide payroll, and it's quite amazing. It's very complicated, but there's a lot of, we're finding there's a good segregation of duties, and so far seems to be a lot of controls, especially with the new software that we just adopted this year with the Munis system. So I feel good about that, and so I think what we're seeing now is more a case of fine-tuning. And on this page too, one of the risks is one that I was not aware of, and just came, I think the city council just became aware of this, as far as new developments here on the top of page, I think it's top of page 4 maybe. The risk was developers failing to fulfill their responsibility, something I had not occurred to me, and I think what happened was with the recession a few years ago, some of the developers fell on hard times and they maybe walked away from some of the projects, and the infrastructure wasn't getting developed as it should. So management responded, and they just had a press release last month that as of 2014, the city is requiring developers to sign a construction agreement, which includes a bond. So if that happens, at least the city has recourse to complete the project and has the funds to pay for it. So in other words, the people that are going to buy property in that development aren't going to be stuck with, okay, the developer walked away, we don't have a road, we have a gravel road, what are we going to do? Well, the city has an option now, so I think those things come up, things that maybe weren't a problem 15 years ago, and then all of a sudden, because of outside circumstances, they become an issue, and the management has to respond. So that's all I have. And if you got a specific question, you can ask me now, or if something occurs to you.
No questions? Again, I would encourage you that for the new people on the committee to take a look at some of these risks, like just a few of them. But those are risks, real risks that the city has, and how we're covering them, and how the internal audit committee is working through.
Yeah.
Okay. Rich, on peer review, how is that coming?
Yeah, we have new members, so I better talk about that, because I know Arnie and Jason and Rex know all about this. But in order to say that we're complying with the standards, we don't put that on our reports. We don't say that we are, because we haven't gone through a peer review. I mean, we think we are. We think we're up to speed now. But what's required to really put the good housekeeping seal of approval is a peer review, which means other auditors come and review your work. And I had the opportunity to serve on a peer review team already for it was a San Diego International Airport. They have an audit staff of 6 auditors, and they asked for volunteers from our professional association. And so I was there with 2 other auditors for a week in first week of April out in San Diego, auditing that audit office and going through their reports. And so the recommendation is you do that every 5 years. And so our first one, we've asked our professional association to do this fall in October. I've worked with the coordinator, Kathy Knox. She's an auditor for the Los Angeles Metro Authority. And we've talked in last month. We tentatively set the week of October 6th, that first full week in October. And then she sent me the person that is going to be the team leader. He is the chief internal auditor for the City of El Paso, Texas, Mr. Edmundo Calderon. He has 3 professional certification. He has 30 years audit experience, and he's been on 3 previous peer review teams. So he's very, very qualified to be the team leader. And Kathy will try to get at least 1 other person to be on the team. Usually they like to have 3 people, but I think I think they could probably do our peer review with 2. So I suggested that to Kathy. I told her, don't send people here in January. I said it may not be pleasant. So, go ahead, Mr.
To that
Carson.
point, Rich, you're talking about doing it in October. Why don't you make it a week later, and whoever comes can spend the opening week of pheasant season?
Depends on if they're hunters. I don't know.
You never know.
Yeah.
Don't tell them to bring their guns.
Yeah. I can tell you it was very pleasant to go to San Diego. That was very nice for a peer review, especially my first one. It was very, very nice.
Pick January then, too.
Yeah, that would have been great in January, go down to San Diego. But so anyway, they come, and the deal is we belong to ALGA, A-L-G-A, Association of Local Government Auditors. It's just a group of basically people like me. I think there's maybe 2 full-time paid staff, a very low-key operation. I think they're based headquarters in Kentucky, but that doesn't really matter. They have a national conference every year, which we attend when we can, and they asked for people to be on peer review. And so I went to the training last year at the national conference. It's a 1-day training, and then a part of the deal is if you want to be peer reviewed, you have to go through training yourself and then be willing to be on a team. So the labor is volunteer, basically, and they ask the local government that's requesting the peer review to pay the expenses of the team. Airfare, per diem, a rental car, that sort of thing. And so they suggested put $5,000 in the budget, which we did for this year. So that should be enough for 3. If we only have 2, we'll have a little surplus at the end. So we would pay their expenses. We actually, I think, send the check to ALGA, I think, and then they arrange for the reimbursement or whatever. So ALGA coordinates it, and then they come on a Monday. Usually come Sunday, they fly in, and they start Monday morning, and then by usually Thursday afternoon or Friday morning, they're done with their report. And they prepare like a 1-page report, whether you comply or partially comply. I think they've had 1 failure in the many years they've been doing it. It was a big deal, because usually what happens, you don't request a peer review unless you think you're ready, and then they ask you to go through a pre-assessment. And if they don't think you're ready, then they probably would not waste time with a team. But it's a good exercise. You get people from the outside that know the standards, maybe have some good ideas from what they do. And certainly I learned a lot by going to San Diego, seeing what they did, and exchanging ideas with the other team leaders. So that was very valuable. So that's the update. So I like to say we'll have it done in October. Hopefully by next month, Kathy will contact me, and we'll have something more firm.
So just to clarify, the city is a member of the association, and then we have individuals that represent the city. And
Yeah.
how many do we have from Sioux Falls that are actually participate within this association?
Well, we belong we have a group membership, and we pay, I think it's $200 a year, I think, and we're a group member. I've been to the national conference maybe 4 times. Kim went this year. It was in Tampa. I went last year. It was in Nashville. They move it around. I think we put money in the budget for next year to send somebody. I think we'll probably send Kim. She expressed an interest. We try to send at least one person every year. And when you go, in Tampa, it was very well attended. Usually there's about 200 people there. I think at Tampa there was way more than that, wasn't there?
Yeah, I'd like to say it was about 8. Or no, 4, sorry. It was about double attendance.
Yeah, and I think part of it was in Tampa, and Tampa has Florida has a lot of local government auditors, and it was very easy for them to drive to Tampa. So I think that kind of upped the attendance. But it's usually on a Monday and a Tuesday, and they have like a
They have a pre-workshop for a peer review.
Usually have that peer review training on Sunday if you want to sign up for that. That's 8 hours. And then on Wednesday, they'll have a couple of things. Wednesday morning, that's extra. It's not part of the regular conference, but it's usually well attended. I've really enjoyed going to the conferences because you get to meet other local government auditors, networking opportunities. You eat lunch together. Monday night, they have a kind of a dinner and a social or.
Right.
Yeah. And the training is usually just other auditors presenting, best practices or stuff they've learned.
That's a bargain to the city.
Oh, yeah.
To pay only expenses.
Yeah, that peer review. Because if you could have a Big 4 accounting firm do this, they'd be more than willing to do it and probably do a pretty good job. You could spend, 10 or 20,000 easily. I know
just bringing them in.
Yeah, I know San Diego. We did their second peer review. They did one 5 years before in 2008, and they hired a San Diego, a large accounting firm to do it, and it was not cheap. Very good job, but yeah, it's so.
This is one of the things that we discussed. What was it, 2 years ago or so, and made the suggestion that my question was who audits the auditors. And so this is what came out of that, and Rich and the committee, or not the committee, but the auditors, our staff, has been very willing to take it on, and I think that's commendable.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to having that to get things done correctly.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that? Okay, Rich, you got one more.
Yeah. As you're probably aware, Ann Opgard, her term was up in May. She's an original member. She's been on there for 6, 7, 8 years. So we have an opening. That person will sit right here. We put out the press release, just like the mayor's office does when they have an opening on a city commissioner or board. And then we also, I had the idea to send an email to the Sioux Falls chapter of the IIA. I sent it to the secretary, and I said, could you send the email out to the members? There's about 100 members, kind of eastern South Dakota, basically, and just say, hey, we got an opening. Because normally they'll send emails out on job openings. That's usually what we receive. And he said, sure. And I'd say within an hour, I had 2 emails from people that were interested. The next day, I had a phone call and an email. And then yesterday, or 2 days ago, I got an email. So I've had 4 emails and a phone call from local internal auditors that might be interested. So my intention is just to follow up on that. And if we get more than one, I think we'll have to have some sort of selection committee, I would guess. Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to bring up to the group. How would you like to proceed with that if we do, and hopefully we will have, need to make a selection between 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them? We probably need to get together either this group or do informally a selection committee. And I don't know exactly how to do it. I got an idea, but if somebody else got an idea,
I'd like to see you and Rich and maybe one of our other citizen board members kind of review it, the 3 of you, and make a recommendation to the rest.
Okay. That's about what I came up with too, yeah.
And then
possibly create a questionnaire that you could send out, and then you could maybe even narrow it down further then, and whether you conducted interviews or not. But I would make that suggestion.
I think we could maybe just ask for a resume or something like that, and then make some phone calls. Because the people have to be in the city of Sioux Falls and have to
registered voter.
A registered voter.
Yeah.
Rich, haven't you already followed up on those 2 items? Though?
Well, people ask me, what do I need to do? And I kind of said, well, we kind of need to know that. I need your contact information and that. I haven't received anything back yet. But
would it be appropriate to ask for a resume and then go from there? would that be a fairly simple thing to ask for that we could then get some information off of? That'd be, oh, you think that'd be,
Yeah. I think that's-
okay?
yeah.
Then let's direct Rich to ask those people for a resume or any other pertinent information they'd like to give us.
I also told him, I said, a brief statement of why you want to serve on the committee.
There you go.
Yeah, that'd be
Right.
helpful
Right.
to us. Yeah.
Then I will get together with either Arnie or Jason, and when we get some in, and we'll go through them and make a recommendation to you guys, to the entire committee.
And then when it's all said and done, the full council has to appoint by resolution, which we had to do had to reappoint Jason
Right.
for a term. So
That was tough, though.
yeah, it was tough.
It was close. It was I think it was 8-1 or something like that. Anyway. Okay, thank you. Now, we've got some, next thing is kind of a fun thing. I know that many of us have gone through some certifications and different testing procedures in our professional careers. I know I have. They were a few years ago, but they're tough. And we have a new passee, if you will. You want to take it from here?
I'm a CPA, and the equivalent in the internal auditing world it's what's called CIA, Certified Internal Auditor, and it's a 3-part test. Each part I think is about 2 hours. It's difficult, and it is through the Institute of Internal Auditors. It does this international test, and it's given in many languages around the world, but it's sort of the gold standard for internal auditing. And we're very pleased that one of our staff just took part 3, and she found out that she passed. I mean, it was unofficial. She had to go to the Prometric place in town, and she's passed all 3 parts now, so we're just waiting the official IA, but I think we're pretty safe in saying that we have a new CIA here, so I think we deserves a round of applause for
Yes.
her.
So does the business card then have the name and CIA?
Yeah, in fact, there's a funny story that some of the people that belong to the IA, especially the ones that travel internationally and they have business cards and they have their name and they have CIA, they seriously want the IA to change the acronym because they said they were stopped by, whenever they went through customs or whatever, and they said people thought at the border crossing we were CIA, we were sort of Central Intelligence Agency, which is, you think it's ridiculous, but that's what happens. But no, so she'll be able to put those 3 initials behind her name once it becomes official. I think it has to go from Prometric to the IA and then that sort of thing.
Kim,
But,
congratulations.
so
Yes,
it's a lot of work.
congratulations, Kim.
It's difficult.
good.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So.
Is there any other, go ahead.
Oh, the upcoming meeting, September 25th. Now, I believe Mr. Kiley or Mr. Forbes you won't be there.
Correct.
But I think everybody else, it's on a Thursday. You should have it on your calendar. And then the next one, it would be Wednesday, December 11th, and I think Mr. Forbes will not be there. He already told me that, but hopefully we need 4 for a quorum, so hopefully we'll have our quorum. So,
Any other open discussion? Entertain a motion to adjourn
So moved.
and head to the golf course.
Second. Yeah.
Motion carries.